our website. We're going to Brazil now, where the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 has passed 100,000 with more than 7,000 deaths. The latest figures are the highest in Latin America, although President Jair Bolsonaro continues to call the virus a mild flu, and he's again appeared in public greeting supporters in the capital, Brasilia. Well, meanwhile, in Rio de Janeiro, a face mask has been projected onto the Christ the Redeemer statue to raise awareness of social distancing and self-care in the pandemic. Well, as the number of coronavirus cases goes up in Brazil, so does the threat to communities in the Amazon region. Already, the biggest city, Manaus, has seen its health system collapse. But for the indigenous people of Brazil, the pandemic represents both a health and an environmental challenge. And raising awareness of this are more than 60 celebrities from around the world, including Paul McCartney, Madonna and Brad Pitt, who all signed an open letter to President Bolsonaro warning him that indigenous communities face an extreme threat to their survival. Well, let's get more of this from Sao Paulo with the journalist Euan Marshall. He's from the Brazilian Report. Tell us, why are indigenous communities in the Amazon region at danger? What's the unique danger facing them?
Well, first of all, we have to remember that even in the best case scenario, healthcare in indigenous communities in Brazil, it's always been precarious. It's hard logistically to get doctors to these regions. Often to get to a health clinic, you have to take a long boat ride, for example. So, a lot of the new graduates from medical school don't often look to get public service posts in the Amazon. With the coronavirus, what that brings in is that the nature of the virus being a respiratory disease, extremely contagious, and with the best recommendations being, as the World Health Organization has said, washing your hands and social distancing, that sort of thing. This doesn't really translate very well to the indigenous way of life and how indigenous communities in Brazil are. You often have a lot of families living in small spaces in the same house, for example. Even your whole extended family might be living in one very small village. Sanitary conditions are often not the best. So the risk is that if the virus was to properly make it to these villages, then it could be a major issue on the health front.
And do we have a sense of how much the virus has penetrated these communities?
Well, so if you bear in mind that the indigenous community as a whole in Brazil adds up to roughly about 900,000 people, so far we've had 120 confirmed cases and 6 deaths so far. But as the numbers are rising all around Brazil, we fear that was probably going to increase quite soon.
What action has the Brazilian government been taking then?
Well, in terms of the government and indigenous matters, it's there's a very long story there. In fact, the Jair Bolsonaro government, when it came to power last year, one of its platforms was essentially trying to show indigenous lands and the Amazon as a whole as this really wealth-rich land that had to be exploited for profit, essentially. So there hasn't been a lot of care given to indigenous communities around Brazil. In terms of concrete health actions that have taken place, you have the indigenous health secretaries are handing out masks, handing out hand sanitizer, all that sort of thing. There have been some field hospitals set up in major Amazonian cities, but nowhere near where these indigenous communities are. So it has been this kind of, you will get a lot of press statements from the government saying that they are helping the indigenous communities quite a lot, but we haven't really seen any concrete behaviour.
Euan, thank you very much for your time. It's a complicated picture, so thanks for filling some of that in for us.